Today, we're going to talk about why dudes have trouble getting second dates. Now, the first thing we got to start with is some disclaimers, because now Dr. K is talking about dating. Oh my God! To be completely fair, I have not ever made an online dating profile, but this video is born out of the dudes that I have helped who have struggled to get second dates. And what we discovered is that a lot of the common wisdom around how to date is actually not wise at all. It's crap on the internet. And it's taken me a while to put together this video because I've literally been reading about the nature of sexual attraction, chemistry, dating, and this kind of stuff, looking at all of this research for about a year and a half. And I think I finally figured something out that has been very helpful to some of the men that I've worked with. Now, the second disclaimer is this video only about men? A lot of the stuff in this video applies to actually everyone, because we're going to learn the science of attraction and why human beings date people who are not good for them, right? Because if you're a dude out there and you're like scratching your head and you're like, I don't understand, I'm doing everything right. I glowed myself up. I went to the gym. I worked on myself because everybody said work on yourself. And now I'm making more money. I got promoted. I did everything right. And I can get someone to go on one date with me. But for some reason, they always say, yeah, I think about you as more of a friend. So what is going on there, right? And here you are as a dude pulling your hair out because you can see that there are romantic partners out there that are less suitable than you that seem to be getting second dates all the time. So what the hell is going on? I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Babbel. Babbel is the top language learning app worldwide, and I really love it because I'm actually learning Spanish after I've been using it for about 2 months. So right now, for example, I'm learning common conversational phrases that I can string together to actually have a conversation. Like dos veces a la semana, which means twice a week, or tres veces al mes, which means 3 times a month. And that's what I really love about the app is they make learning very, very easy and accessible. And they use certain scientific methods that actually have you being the most proficient in the shortest amount of time. So I can't recommend Babbel enough. And it's awesome that they're giving us 60% off of their subscription if you check out the link in the description below. So thank you to Babbel for keeping mental health content on the internet free and actually teaching human beings how to communicate with each other. So a lot of this stuff applies more to men because this is the selection bias that I have, but a lot of these scientific principles apply to women as well. I think for women, though, the expectations around dating are completely different and come with their own set of challenges. And a lot of the women that I've talked to have different problems with dating, usually involving things like dick pics, people being two-faced, and all kinds of other stuff where like they seem really, really nice until, oh, it turns out they're an asshole. So there's a different video that I'm making about that. But today we're going to focus on these problems around second dates. Now, if you're a woman or non-binary person and you struggle to get a second date, all this stuff will apply to you as well. So let's understand what's going on, okay? The first thing to understand is that a lot of the common wisdom we have around dating is wrong. It's not actually based on any kind of science. It's just this is what people think works. Everyone is looking for a long-term partner. I mean, not everyone is looking for a partner. A lot of people are like looking for short-term kind of things. But if we think about a date, a very common experience that I see people having is that people have a super high list of requirements. So it's like, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this. And there's this kind of this mentality that like, okay, if this person doesn't fit my requirements, it's not worth wasting my time, right? I should filter all them out because out of the billion people on the internet, surely I can find someone who checks these boxes. So this is a problem for one very fundamental reason. When human beings first interact, the initial chemistry, and what we kind of talk about chemistry versus friend zone or short-term or long-term or whatever, the chemistry that we experience has nothing to do with long-term mating prospects. Selecting a long-term mate has a different set of requirements and different stuff going on in the brain than someone who we think is hot. We know we shouldn't be dating, and we're not even sure because our friends are kind of telling us, hey, they're not even that hot, but for some reason, we can't get them out of our mind. We are going to teach you about why that happens, okay? So the first problem is that modern dating confuses short-term attraction with long-term kind of mating prospects. And this is where a lot of people like pickup artists and red pillars will kind of come in. Will say like, oh, you should do this. Like, you should insult her, man. And if you insult her, it's nagging. If you insult her, then you'll show her that you are more valuable to her and then she'll like you. The reason that crap works is because some people out there have been traumatized and have low self-esteem. And when you play into their trauma and emotionally manipulate them, they may be willing to engage with you further. But it doesn't work on everyone. It works on a subset of people who've been traumatized. So a lot of this common wisdom is actually off, okay? So the first thing that you should do when you go on a date is do not talk about your interests. Don't try to see if y'all are a good match. Don't try to see if you guys like all the same things. I know it sounds absolutely insane, but if you really pay attention to the case studies and think about the people in your life when you got super into someone, you may be like, yeah, we kind of have all the same interests. Like sometimes that's sort of the case, but oftentimes we find ourselves attracted to people who are not like the opposite version of the opposite gender version of ourselves, right? Assuming a heterosexual relationship. So it's not like the person that I find the most attractive is the person that is a female version of Dr. K. Like it doesn't work like that. In fact, my wife and I are like completely different. We're at opposite ends of the spectrum in so many different ways, and we just couldn't get each other out of our heads. So we're going to teach you how to do that. So number one, pitfall to avoid. Don't talk about your interests. Let's understand why. So one of the things that we know about creating chemistry or sexual attraction, okay, because there's studies on sexual attraction too, is that shared emotional experiences lead to attraction, okay? So this is a huge problem in rehab. So if you have ever been to rehab, if you ever worked at rehab, you know that we have one problem as doctors in rehab or nurses or whoever. We try to keep patients from fucking. All the patients, all they want to do all the time in rehab is fuck. Like, honestly, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And the question is why? Why on earth are all of these people, when they're withdrawing from substances, when they're like in the process of putting their life together, which is an absolute shambles, all they can think about is fucking. And it turns out that when you share an emotional experience with someone, that leads to a sense of chemistry, bond, and even sexual attraction. This is why, like, you know, if you'll hear this story a lot, for example, like, yeah, you know, like this person's partner passed away from cancer and there was someone else who was there for them and they both grieved together and then they fell in love, right? So we know from science that basically anytime you share an emotional experience with someone else and you're on the same empathic wavelength, that leads to chemistry. So what happens in rehab is everyone is going through all the same crap. Everyone's lives have fallen apart. Everyone is sharing their story. Everyone's going through withdrawal. And by the way, by the end of rehab, right, week 3, week 4, everyone is feeling good. So you've walked this emotional roller coaster with this other human being, and it literally creates this kind of like chemistry, this deep bonding. My favorite study that sort of tested this specifically is they had dates go meet on a bridge. So they had people who went on dates. There are 2 bridges. There's a stone bridge, and then there's a rickety bridge. And what they literally found is that when there is stability on the bridge, people are less attracted to each other. But when there's a rickety bridge and we meet in the middle of a rickety bridge, I'm scared a little bit shitless and you're scared a little bit shitless. And that actually creates a sense of chemistry. So if we look at the standard date that we go on, it's like, okay, like let's go and see if we're a good match. So we're going to sit there. It's not a date. It's a fucking interview, right? It's like, okay, so tell me a little bit. Are you interested in having kids? Because like I've got my thing and like, oh, I see here that you're interested in having kids. Okay, like how do you feel about pets? Dogs, cats? Are you a dog person, cat person? Are you neither person? Are you vegan? Are you not vegan? It's a fucking job interview. And if you look at the empathic connection, it's not there at all, right? Because one person is doing the interviewing and the other person is being interviewed. Y'all may take turns, but in the moment that both of you are talking about your stuff, it's like, where's the empathic connection? Where's the flirtation? Where's the excitement? Where's the fear? So we know that we need shared emotional connections. And a lot of times that's not what happens when we go on dates because we're in this weird pseudo interview kind of like style. So what I would recommend is that you do an activity that is not a standard date, but you do an activity that is going to have both of y'all having the same emotion. Now, this is where a lot of people slip up because we can say like, go on a roller coaster. Like, I think that sounds great. Go whitewater rafting. These are the things that I like, right? Maybe you want to do something like go rock climbing or dancing, but then you've got to be careful. So a lot of times if you do something like dancing, let's say, are you and the other person going to have the same emotional state? Only if both of y'all are into dancing. But if one of y'all is a novice and one of y'all is an expert, one of you is going to be having the time of their life, and the other person is going to be thinking like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. I'm not saying that compassion in those situations or teaching someone can't be attractive as well. There's other stuff to it. But the main thing to understand is we want to shoot for a shared emotional state. So something like an escape room, something like a roller coaster, something where both of y'all are going to be emotionally kind of at the same level is really what you want to shoot for. And anytime human beings share emotions, they feel connected. The second thing that leads to chemistry or attraction is a freedom from daily hassles. So this is the second problem that I think a lot of people run into, is that going on a date with you can sometimes be more trouble than it's worth, right? So this is where what you really want to do is create a situation that is hassle-free. Now, this is not easy to do. It's full of landmines, because this is the other problem that dudes face, is that like it's not clear, or women too, everyone who's dating is facing this basic problem where everyone has a set of rules about what to do or what not to do. The problem is that there's no consensus about the rules. So some people are like, oh my God, like real men figure everything out and they don't ask 1,000 questions. They take the lead. And other people are like, well, this person is like not giving me a choice. This person is like figuring out, like he's telling me to be here at this time. He sounds like an asshole. There's no space for my opinion. And in both of these cases, everyone is really, really sure what they want, but it's the exact opposite thing, which makes it insane to try to date today, because every person that you meet has their own report card, which you don't know ahead of time, and they're not going to give you a second chance because there's a billion people out there. So like before you know what you're being graded for, it's like they hand you a sheet of paper and they're like, write something on the sheet of paper. And you're like, I'm confused. Should I write an essay or do a math problem or draw a picture? And so they're like, I don't know. And so then you draw a picture and they're like, fuck you. This was a Spanish test. You were supposed to be writing an essay in Spanish. They're like, you fail. And then you're like, wait, you didn't tell me that ahead of time. This is what modern dating is like. At the same time, what we know about sexual attraction, chemistry, being into each other, is that you want to make things as hassle-free as possible. So start to ask yourself, when someone is interacting with me, is it a hassle, right? Am I asking them too many questions? Am I demanding too much from them? So what I would actually recommend is that you do 51+% of the work yourself in terms of organizing the date. Maybe ask for a couple preferences and be like, hey, I'm going to toss out an idea. Let me know if this works for you, or if you want to discuss it more. What do you think about meeting at this time at this day, and we'll kind of do this? Like, how does that sound? Right? So offer something up first and then leave the space for them to disagree or whatever. So you want to be a little bit directive, but a little bit open. The main thing is that you don't want to make it a pain in the ass for them. There are studies that show that when people are like dating and stuff, and what they really are looking for is a break from their day. So I'm at work today. My boss is writing me about this, and like my coworkers are doing this, and I have this deadline that's due on Monday. So Thursday rolls around. I want to take a break from my life. And it's the human being that can help me take a break from my life that I will feel very much more attracted to. Okay? So try to be as hassle-free as possible. The third thing, which a lot of people make a mistake on, is that we know that chemistry builds and starts to wane after 90 minutes. So if you have an interaction with someone, don't have it longer than 90 minutes. Okay? So what that means is we're going to do like a nice short date. And even if they're super into it, be a little bit careful, right? Because things were going really, really well. And we went on a 4-hour date. And then they were like, I think of you as a friend. And people are like, I don't understand what happened. Things were going really well. We hung out together for 4 hours. That's what happened. You hung out for 4 hours. And the data suggests that a 90-minute window is actually optimal for sort of the formation of chemistry. Okay? So these are the 3 things that y'all need to really focus on if you want to get a second date. Because a lot of y'all out there have fixed all the stuff around the dating profiles, right? You've done what you can. You've learned how to glow up a little bit. You learned how to take a picture. You started working out. You started working harder at work. You got promoted. You make a little bit more money. You've fixed everything that you can in your own life, but you're still not sure why people don't go on second dates with you. And on the flip side, by the way, this is how those losers end up getting second dates, third dates, fourth dates, right? Because it's not like they have stable jobs or they've got 5 baby mamas or whatever. Like, you know, their life seems to be a mess and they're managed to get dates. And why is that? That's because they figured this stuff out. They tend to be in and out, right? They're not consistent. 90-minute, oh yeah, sorry, I got to go. They're not hanging out with you all day. They do make things actually kind of hassle-free, right? There may be drama, but it's hassle-free early on. It's like, hey, this is a free ticket to a good time, right? No strings attached, like whatever. We're not going to talk about life. We're not going to talk about marriage or having kids. We're just going to have a good time. And the last thing is that they create shared emotional connections. And sometimes the way that they do that is by actually encouraging drama. So some people who are like very dramatic will actually create a shared emotional connection. I'm frustrated with you, you're frustrated with me. And that actually like binds us together, even though we're really fucking frustrated with each other, right? It's really weird, but that's like literally how it works. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the friend zone for a second, because this is a great example of why the friend zone doesn't work. So a lot of times people will be like, I'm so confused why this person continues to date bad dudes when I'm loving, I'm supportive, I'm compassionate. My friend or this person that I'm attracted to keeps on complaining about all these qualities, but I have all of those qualities. Why won't they date me? And it's because y'all are never on the same emotional level, right? So when your friend who friend zoned you is crying because she got mistreated by her boyfriend, you are very compassionate and she is very emotional. That's not on the same level. You're picking up the pieces. And by the way, that's what friends do for each other. Ideally, what would happen is if you were going through a breakup, she would reciprocate, right? You're crying and then she's sort of meeting you where you're at. And that's what friends are. Friends are people who don't necessarily share the same emotional connection, but actually complement each other emotionally, right? Friends are the people who, when you're feeling really down, they're the ones that are going to pep you up. That's not sexual attraction. That's friendship. That's reciprocity. So it turns out that if you're having trouble getting a second date, there's actually some interesting scientific studies and principles that we don't really leverage. We don't really understand what the nature of attraction is and how chemistry forms. And paradoxically, this is really frustrating for us because we see it, right? We see people that we think, this person should not be getting second dates. This person should not be getting third dates. I'm better than them. But they clearly are doing something that you are not doing. And it turns out it comes down to three things. First of all, 90 minutes or less, hassle-free, and shared emotional connection. This is what the science of chemistry, attachment, things like that, the formation of bonds really tells us, leads people to kind of get sexually excited and form a little bit more chemistry. So give this a shot. I hope it's helpful to you. And as a caveat, like this is not stuff that, well, it's stuff that I've piloted with a very small number of people. But this is what I've been found to be useful for a lot of the people that I work with. So give it a shot. And for the love of God, do not talk about long-term stuff on a first date. Or even if they want to, you can humor them some, but you don't go there. You're not going through a job interview. You're trying to have fun with someone and form a connection. So that's what you should focus on. And doing something a little bit scary for both of y'all is usually a good start.